Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Review with me. I am your host Maxine and we are reviewing Ready to Love season 11 episode 9. This episode is titled what is it called? Hold on. Detroit Getaway part 1. Well, let's get into it, y'all. Let's just jump right in. So, Tommy meets with the ladies in the lounge. They debrief on how it was for the fellas to meet their best friends. Then, of course, the conversation jumps to Lauren and the whole Vince 6'2" debacle. Now, Lauren is feeling like she uses the word aggressive. This is the second time the word aggressive has been used against Vince. Okay, the first time was with Ashante when Vince was letting her know, no, he's not going to just let a woman just run him amok as he's working endlessly and she's expecting him to cover every little bit of the household and she doesn't contribute anything. He was breaking that down then. But in this case, he's described as aggressive again because he was not playing with them when they were trying to come at him about his height and if he was telling the truth or not of him being 6'2". Now, this is just so silly. It's so silly because Lauren and her friends are so unfor-real. Like, they're not serious right now. They can't be serious. And apparently Lauren has a podcast with Ashante and Lauren is still doubling down on this. It's clear as day why this woman is not in a relationship because she's so unserious. The lack of accountability from her, and as we see later on in this episode, is insane. But the way that she's describing Vince during this debrief with Tommy, I think it's definitely unfair, it's immature, and it's tainting his image even more, and I hate that, yes, Vince did call her a bitch earlier on in this episode in jest, in the background and whatever, and he apologized for it, but I feel like because he still did that, that's going to be something on his jacket that people could always refer to and use as a way to prove, see, he is aggressive, right? He called you a bitch, right? He called you a tall bitch. And it's like, ugh, come on. But anyway, we're getting into that. They're all debriefing. Dominique is saying how Bellow showed up and showed out. And they start off this episode with an elimination because the last episode focused on to be continued. So we jump into the elimination and it's between Carde and Devon. So Ashley meets with Carde, okay? And Carde walks up on her and he says, "Is this seat taken?" And, they laugh a little bit. He was about to sit down, but then he decides to hug her instead. Ashley doesn't stand up, which I thought that was strange, but she doesn't stand up. There's a drink in front of her. Carde, I guess he's overstimulated at this point because initially he gives her a hand, like he motions his hand forward to her as if he's giving her a handshake. And she calls it out. She's like, "Oh, you about to give me a handshake?" So she kind of shifted the moment for him to give her a hug instead. And maybe because he wasn't prepared for that, that is what caused the drink to spill over her. And instead of him being proactive in the situation and say, "Oh, let me get you a towel, I'm so sorry," he did apologize, but he looked at the drink as if the drink was going to clean itself up. He looked at the drink as if the drink was going to clean. Y'all saw that? I'm like, okay. And he really wanted to get that hug. And what I'm noticing about Carde, he is wanting a feel of Ashley. He is doing this continuously throughout this episode, and we'll talk about that again later. But he was so determined to still get that hug. He was not even trying to like back up off her and help clean her up from this spill. He was so determined on getting this damn hug, and his hand was right across her breast. Like he was basically caressing her breast. But anyway, that just proves to me how corny he is, how lack of a game he has, and how probably inexperienced he is. That's just my opinion. So Shannon meets with Devon. It's a nice warm greeting. And I'm already laughing because Devon really played himself. Congratulations. Congratulations, you played yourself. He sits down, they sit down, and she, of course, references the last date that they had in which he met her friend Mercedes, who was previously on this show a few seasons ago. She said to him, I was really hoping that you was going to show up and show out. Like I thought, and I expected you to say that I was your number one. And for her to have that expectation tells me a lot. It tells me that there must have been a connection strong enough, clear enough between them, so much so that Shannon is secure enough or assured enough that he would make that clear, right? Like it wasn't in her head, or at least so she thought. So what's interesting is he, in response to that, like he kind of smiles and then he says, well, it fluctuates. Dominique was my top from the beginning, but then it kind of goes down. And then Ashante has been rising. Mind you, he's telling this to another woman who I guess she's not even in the top of one or two. Okay, the way he's talking about, Ashante's rising. It's like, damn nigga, like, am I number 3 now? Was I number 3 all along? What are we talking about? And I think that is what is most infuriating, because it's like, okay, sure. I get this process of dating multiple people at the same time, but as we're narrowing down and as we've been communicating as much as we have, or seemingly so, Shannon was under the impression that me and you are kind of on each other's pedestal. So what are you saying? And for him to it's like he lacks game as well, just as Carde does. Just as he does. Because for him to like sit in her face and say, well, these 2 other women are really strong in my book too, and they've been rising and fluctuating, and you not so much. Like, if you don't get out of my face, I would have been so, and you could see it in Shannon's face. I don't know if Devon even caught that, or if he was brave enough to even call it out, but you could see in her face how pissed off she was. Anyway, it leads for Devon to get eliminated, which is rightfully so. At first, like in the moment, I was like, dang, Devon's really gone. But he played himself. And I think this is just. I think this is what happens when you lack assertiveness. And even during this elimination, Shannon said, you lack confidence. But he was shaking his head as if he didn't agree. Yet during his confessionals, he says, had I been more assertive and less political, I probably wouldn't have been eliminated. So that tells me that Shannon was correct. So whether you want to name it confidence or assertiveness, it's still under the same umbrella. And I feel like ultimately he played himself. So now the people are on their way to the getaway. And one thing I noted was, okay, Bellow and Dominique are really close. It's clearly obvious that they're feeling each other just as much as the other is, right? So it's like a mutual thing, I feel like. And you can see it in this ride as they're on their way to this getaway. So you have Bellow driving, Dominique is in the front passenger seat, and you have Shannon in the back seat looking like a little kid. And I just felt like, how come Steven couldn't have been next to her? It just felt awkward. It felt like she was the third wheel. It felt like she was a child and they're just dropping her off for summer day camp. It was a little weird. Dominique's leg is sitting up. Bellow's hand is on her inner thigh. This is a couple. But let's see how this goes. So anyway, they're all riding along. It's a good day. Then we jump into the whole room assignment. And this is what turned me off about Dominique. Something about her energy here shifted for me. She came across very territorial. And maybe that's just what happens when you go away with your connection, right? We're staying in this cabin, right? Cabin fever is the thing. And, typically with these shows, they don't have assigned rooms, which I think would have helped diminish any problems. But of course, we want a show. So as they're walking around the house, they're selecting their rooms. Shannon finds this suite of a room, this master suite. And initially I felt like, okay, Shannon, you have no business to be in this room. This room does need to be for a Dominique and Bellow, right? It has to be for a couple. And Shannon, like, girl, go find you a bunk bed and sit in the lower bunk. Go sit in the lower bunk. But anyway, Shannon arrived to the room first and she plops her bag down. She's like, this is my room. And shortly thereafter, I guess Dominique didn't hear Shannon say that, or she didn't even care. She immediately dropped her things, said, oh, this is our bed. And not only is she dropping her things off, but she is dropping Bellow's things off, making it clear, this is our bed. We're staying here. Shannon, I don't know what you about to do, but you're not about to stay here. And Shannon, I think she handled it like a champ as far as she wasn't visibly butthurt or making a big fuss about it, which I could appreciate. But I did feel like low key Dominique chin checked her. And I think it's because Shannon gives this, she's very, I think she gives this lighthearted, playful, innocent, somewhat of a doormat, unfortunately, because people will assume her personality type. I could just kind of, little girl, get on my face, kind of smush her or dismiss her. And I think that is what happened in this moment here. Anyway, so Shannon got pushed somewhere else. I don't know where else she slept, but she found another room and made it do what it do. But Lauren noticed this. And mind you, Lauren likes Bellow. And she wanted to make it clear to Bellow that if you are sleeping in the same bed with Dominique, this is a clear boundary for me. And we're not going to continue whatever this is. Okay. But before we even get to that, I kind of want to follow the chronological, thing, right? So before we get to that, Tommy greets everyone at the house, yada, yada, yada. Everyone's finding their footing. Darius is still in his fur. He and Shannon sit down. I think this is the Shannon show. I feel like I've been talking about Shannon the whole time. So Shannon sits down with Darius. She sits down with Darius and they talk about his past relationship. Remember, Darius mentioned in the last episode that he was with this woman, that he was with his ex for 11 years. Now, I don't know if that's the woman from the whole Meet My Ex episode, if it's that woman who looked like, she works the nightlife. But I think it could be fitting that it probably was her. Nonetheless, we learn that his ex of 11 years, it was on and off. It was during his 20s. She actually was a stripper. I don't know if she still is, but she was a stripper. And it just didn't work because he wanted her to leave that profession. And he thought that he could change her. Shannon looked at him like, huh? Why do you think you could change somebody? I don't even understand that whole mindset. What do you mean? He's trying to explain himself saying, well, I just thought it would have been like a short job, right? And he's saying, well, oftentimes people go into, or he said most times people go into the stripper world for a short period of time and they leave. Shannon looked at him like, no, they don't. But even so, I think Shannon was just like so turned off by this life that he's describing. Like, what do you mean? Ew, you just had, like, I felt like, yeah, she did come off judgmental, but I think it's fine because she comes from a different world. This bitch is a registered nurse. You know how much school that takes? And granted, there are women I've seen on TV from what they've said, as they were in nursing school, they spent some time in the stripper joint trying to get some money, paying their nursing school tuition. So these things do correlate. But for Shannon, not so much. I think she's very much a good girl. She gives that good girl aesthetic. And hearing Darius with this fur on his jacket, sitting back, lax and all this, I think it turned her off that, ew, you dated a stripper? And that definitely came off as such, right? So Darius wants to pull the whole okey doke. Well, I feel like he said in his confessional, but he said how he felt like she was being judgmental. And granted, no one wants to feel judged. No one wants to feel ridiculed. But I also feel like, sir, this is kind of wild. And I may not want to be a part of this type of a man, right? Just because this is not my life. And I think with Darius, he has this persona of attracting women as such, right? Attracting night workers. He said he met her at his club. And it's like, what kind of club are you running? Can we start? Hello, ghost? What type of club are you running? So now we jump into a scene between Steven and Donna. Now, mind you, I didn't think Donna and Steven had a connection from like an earlier episode. A scene between them didn't give me they were, or at least he was attracted to her. But we see in this scene that, I think he is attracted to her. So he talks to her and notices her outfit. He notices how she pulls things together, how she dresses, and he's really impressed by that. Apparently, she changed her outfit from earlier, and he commented on, he saw what she had earlier. He liked that. And then he referenced the boots that she's wearing, and he asked a direct question and asked, how much were they? And I thought that was a little... I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm just not into people asking direct questions about money. And that's just something I've always was like that. Like, what are you asking me that for? Are you going to buy it for me? Like, what's good? What? But he's like, how much were they? And she says $1,200 for a pair of boots. Now, to each their own, right? Sometimes some boots do cost, $1,200 is a lot. But that's, if you can afford it, or even if you can't afford it, right? That those are your boots and that's your account is coming out of. But that made me wonder, okay, she's a full-time PhD student. Where is the money coming from? Because I know she says she's a mathematician, but what does that mean exactly? Like, are you working at a university on an upper level and you're able to afford such luxury of a $1,200 pair of boots? Like, that I want to know. But nonetheless, we see that they're having an interaction. We see them vibing. We see chemistry. Like, I'm noticing it, and it's actually quite impressive. Vince is in the background, and you see Vince. I like it, Vince. I love Vince. I really do. But Vince is peeping that, you talking to my girl a little bit long. And then you have Shannon, the main character of this damn episode, apparently. She's coming from the cut because she's liking Steven. She said there's a slow burn between her and Steven. But I don't know if that's reciprocated, Shannon. I don't know. And I hate to say it to you because there's a couple of moments in which she is being more physically flirtatious with him. She's putting her leg on his lap. she is leaning on, she jumps on him in the bed and like cuddles with him, but neither of his hands is around her holding her and returning the cuddle. He is just in his own vibe, right? Like, he's like, okay, you want to cuddle with me, that's fine, you can cuddle with me, but I'm not cuddling with you. So I don't know, Shannon. I don't think he feels the same way about you as you feel about him, and that is unfortunate. We see a conversation between Vince and Donna, because Vince kind of scoops her away from Steven, and they're connecting even further. She's talking about how, you know, she wants to have children, and how do you feel about starting over after already having a 15 and a 17-year-old. And they just connect even further because she says how she comes from a blended family, and when her father remarried, he had her sibling who is 16 years younger than her. So they had that conversation. It seemed like Vince was really impressed by that and just touched by the fact that, wow, you know, this could work. There's a future here. So it was a sweet moment. And I think there's something there that is genuine and that could actually blossom. Child, now we get this scene between Carde and Ashley. Carde, being the awkward person that he is yet again, he decides to grab her by her buttocks, full grasp. Like, I'm surprised she didn't file a sexual assault. Okay? It was intense. And he grabbed her by her full buttocks because he was protecting her from a supposed fall that he assumed she was going to make from his hoverboard. And he brought out this hoverboard because he thought this was a way for him to show Ashley the deeper side of him. Now, look, Carde, maybe you really are a skater boy and this is something that you really love to do, and this is a great hobby of yours that describes who you are. Cool. But this is not what deep means. This is not what she means by saying, oh, I want to learn more about you in a deeper sense. You bring me to an arcade. That's basically what he did. And Ashley, being the good sport that she is, she says she likes games. She likes to have fun. So thankfully it worked with her. But I feel like had it been someone else who probably wasn't as playful as Ashley is, she would have been like, oh, like she probably would have been annoyed. It probably would have gone downhill. Okay. But anyway, he grabs her by the butt. He tries to give this excuse in his confessional, talking about there was no other way for me to grab her. You could have held her right by her waist. Okay, in her backless one piece. You could have held her by the waist. So I just feel like Carde just he was finding an excuse to touch her further. Like I said earlier, he caressed her breast. He is so focused on being touchy-feely with Ashley that this was bound to happen. And again, Ashley's better than me, but I would have been so annoyed. I would have caught an attitude. I would have been like, whoa, 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 dang, or something. But Ashley just laughed it off altogether. I don't know. I didn't like that. That gave me a little creep vibe for sure. So we get a cute moment between Dominique and Bellow. They're seated by the fireside and they're just talking about their future together, basically. And honestly, I don't remember what they were talking about. She was just gazing into his eyes. She was making the first move to kiss him. She just commented on his lips. I forget if they actually did kiss. I don't think they did. But they walked off together. There was a nice, cute, romantic song playing in the background. It was a lot. But ultimately, I do see them really connecting with each other, and we'll see how that goes. But she says she's open, right? She says she's open to having more kids. She just can't carry. And if he's open to either maybe IVF or surrogacy or adoption altogether, we'll see how that goes. But I think that would be the only point of contention that they may face later on. So now all of the folks are at the table having dinner. The meal looks good. Now, I think there was a scene before that showed some of them cooking, but I always wondered about these cast trips, right? Like, is it expected that the people here have to cook themselves, or are they provided with a chef? Which I don't think, I feel like we would have seen that, right? But at the very least, is production purchasing the groceries? Like, what is the plan? I want to know the logistics. Anyway, Carde shares a parable that made no sense, talking about this process isn't easy and some attributes that you think you have, other people may not realize. And he's speaking in third person. He's speaking from a distance. He's not saying I, right? He's not using personal first person pronouns. And after his soliloquy is over, Ashley says, okay, but what did you learn? What are you saying? What did you learn? Because Lauren shared a powerful, reflective moment of her learning that she is more judgmental than she realized, and she prejudges people, and she realizes that about herself, and she probably wants to work on that. And then you come to Carde talking about the world and the stars and what people see and what you don't see, and this process is hard. Sir, what? Anyway, it became a moment of intensity because despite the women telling him, Steve, this is what we're talking about. You're not being deep. You're not being clear. You're very surface level. And he's saying, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm very deep. A nigga could swim. I'm so deep. I'm deep as the ocean. Are you okay? You could swim. Is everybody okay? Vince tries to get him to understand, look, you need to be receptive to what these women are saying, because these are the women who you want to have connections with, right? These are the women who you are trying to build with, and you're being defensive. Boom. People don't like that word defensive. When you say you're being defensive, people don't like that. That is a trigger word for a lot of people, I realize. Don't say I'm being defensive. I'm just defending myself. What? But he still wasn't receptive. The dinner just kind of gets to a stall, and thankfully Vince, being the shift changer that he is, very good with energy, he changes it up and says, I'm gonna get into something comfortable. So now we get a scene between Ashante and Bellow, and Ashante is sharing her concerns yet again about the whole Islam thing and how she fears that he's going to force her to convert because her good girlfriend, who is Muslim, she says typically Muslim men want their women to convert. And Bella gives a reassuring response saying that he doesn't want to force anyone to do what they don't want to do. And he's always strayed his own path, or, made his own path himself. So he talked about his past or his upbringing and how his parents expected him to be either an attorney or an engineer, yet he took his own path and decided to be an entrepreneur, and he does real estate. So all in all, he gave some reassurance that he knows how it feels when people like to coerce you to do things, and he doesn't like that, and he lives that in his own life. So he doesn't want to, and he doesn't plan to convert her. And I think that was comforting. I just feel like Ashante, I don't know if she really likes anybody. I don't know. I don't think she is ready to love. I think, when you talk about, Ashante's not the one talking about how Carde is so surface level, but I think Ashante should be called out for being surface level herself. Like, I don't know much about her. I forget that she does have a child, right? I want to know her past relationships, right? What is her love language? What does she look for in a relationship? What are her future plans with someone? Like, I don't know much about her. I just know that she likes to go out. She wants to be outside. And for someone like a Bellow or anyone else, really, any of her connections, they were like, no, Vince. I remember, she was on that date with Vince when Vince had, that episode when they met the exes. And Ashante said that. I want to go outside. But Vince is not, he's 42 years old. He's not this type to want to be outside. So all in all, I think Ashante, if we want to talk about Carde being surface level, so is Ashante. Okay, and so we get to our, I guess our highlight scene for this episode. Lauren and Vince finally have a sit down after Vince met Lauren's girlfriends and was questioned about his height and if he's being honest about his height. He says how it's unfair for you to not hold any accountability for your friends because I answered a question and that should have been enough. So how is it okay for your friends to still go on and on about it, yet I can't do that? And Lauren here, if you want to call it defensive, right? She was being defensive here. She was not being reflective on how unnecessary her friends were being. And what's weird is Lauren is saying how she thought their interaction went downhill. Yet after that date, they said, her own friend says that they like Vince the most. So what are we talking about? I think her friends realized how foolish they were being with that whole stupid question about his height. And yet Lauren, I think she had a chip on her shoulder and she didn't want to back down. I think her pride was killing her and she was holding on to that thing. He stands 10 toes down. And I think nowadays when you have this whole happy wife, happy life persona or motto that we push upon relationships and marriages and all these things, it diminishes the respect that the man deserves. And Vince is seemingly the guy who's not putting up with that BS. Like, no, you're going to talk to me straight. You're not going to play me. I'm not playing your games. This is silly. This is foolish. I'm 42 years old and I'm not lying to you about my height. Like, what are we talking about? And I feel like those friends of Lauren, they were behaving in a way that's juvenile. That's something you say if you're in your high school years, maybe college. But at that point, what are we talking about? You are a whole mother of 3 boys, and you worried about his height and if he's telling the truth or not? Oh, because this excuse of, well, I'm a tall woman and I like to wear heels, so I want to know if you're... Shut up. Because my way of dressing should not have to impact your confidence if that really is the case. Like, if you really are uncomfortable with my height, then that should be obvious enough. And I think that's something about Lauren. I think that's something about her level of security with her height. And maybe she's had poor experiences with men who were uncomfortable with how tall she is and how much she wears heels. But don't put that on Vince. Has Vince ever made you feel uncomfortable about your height? Has he ever, you know what I mean? Like, so there was no reason for her or her friends to harp on that. And especially since her friends even said themselves, I really like Vince. They like Vince. Vince is ranked high. Why are you still on this, Lauren? Anyway, that is it. That is all. I'm loving this season, y'all. I don't know how many times I gotta say it. It's just been a while since I've liked a season for Ready to Love. The last season was definitely poorly done. It had good hopes, but it failed miserably. And I'm really pleased to see how this season is going. It's a great cast, beautiful people, great atmosphere. It's a really good season so far. So shout out to that. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel, y'all. That is your way of supporting me. Like this video, please, please, please. And leave a comment below. I want to share how you feel, what are your takes, and we'll address that in a future episode. All right. So I'll check in with you all next time. Bye.